people were executed within these walls. 6 on proper built scaffold. But 3 of those 6, they were Queens of England. I'm going to tell you about them, but before I do, I've got to tell you about some of the buildings that surround us. So let's start by looking that way. You can see the entrance to the bloody tower. Now that's where I said the 2 boy princes went missing from, and Sir Walter Raleigh was kept for nearly 13 years of his life. You can visit that tower, find out more about those stories today. A place that you can't visit though, and I did say we'd have a much better view of it, and there it is. That's what we call the Queen's House. But it's the Queen's House in name only, really. Stands on the side of a much older building that served as the Lieutenant's lodgings. However, due to complaints from Sir Edmund Walsingham during the reign of King Henry VIII, it was agreed to advance the sum of money required for rebuilding. And what we see here is the result, a perfectly preserved Tudor residence that still serves as the home to the Constable of the Tower and his family. But not just a home to important officials, some very important prisoners were held in this house. It is believed that Queen Katherine Howard, 5th wife of Henry VIII, was held here prior to her execution. William Penn was another famous prisoner to be held on the top floor of the Queen's House for his offensive writing. I know. And one of the last prisoners of the Tower was Rudolf Hess, deputy leader of Nazi Germany. He was held in the the first floor of the Queen's House for 4 days in May 1941, then taken deeper into the country, pretty much for his own protection, until the end of the war. He was returned to Berlin, Spandau prison, and he was to see out the rest of his days there. That tower in front of you, that's the Beauchamp Tower. Now when you've had a chance to look in the lower level of this tower, free, in fact I think it might be actually closed today. Did I see a sign up? They are actually doing some stuff. I'll tell you about it anyway. I don't think you can go in there. Unfortunately, every now and again, when it gets a little bit quieter months, they fix everything up that were damaged in the summer. And I think there's been some damage to the floors and the concrete in there. So I think that's being fixed at the moment. But I'll mention it because see behind that tall arch window inside there are some notable inscriptions carved into the walls by some of the prisoners. Some of these are nearly 500 years old. Moving to the right, we have the residence of our Tower Doctor. Next door to the Doctor lives the Tower Chaplain. So if he doesn't fix us, he buries us. How organised this is. What a job. I love it here. I love this job. Fantastic. Anyway, so that's the chapel there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying too much about that. That's the Chapel Royal of St Peter ad Vincula. In the quieter months, we actually go in there together, but because it has been a really busy summer, we actually kept the chain down and you can wander in there. Now all the executions, most people, like I said, were executed out on Tower Hill, and their bodies were brought back here, their heads went to London Bridge, okay, but they were buried inside here. And at the back, as you go in, just to the left, there is a plaque with about 33 of the biggest hitters in there on the wall, written on the wall there. Just have a look at that and note, see if you can recognise a lot of the name. Some really big hitters in our country going back to the medieval period, so that's worth a look in itself. But if you continue, what I'm now going to speak about very shortly is the queens that were executed, or the people that were executed in the middle here. Now there's a royal step just on this side, so as you walk all the way down, there's a marble step. All the people I'm going to speak about very shortly are buried in there under that step. So again, that's worth a look. If you get stuck, there's one of us in there, just ask them any questions you need to. And also very quickly, just for interest, on the far wall as you go in on your left hand side, 2 big wooden plaques. On there is loads of names. Now they are the names of my fallen colleagues, okay? So from 1826 when we were recorded, we go back further than that, but from 1826 we were recorded by the Duke of Wellington, and when we die we actually go on that board. It's the board you don't want to be on, but it's a nice little keepsake, and it's nice for you guys to have a look at that inside that, okay? So have a look in there, very humbling, inside that chapel. The Waterloo Block. Stand on the site of the ground storehouse that was destroyed by fire in 1841. This building was erected in 1845 as a barracks for as many as 1,000 soldiers of the Tower garrison. It now houses the Jewel House, and that's where you've got to go to visit our state crown jewels. And what a sight they are. Seeing is believing. I could bang on forever about what's in that building, but you do need to get in there yourselves, have a look in there. You know, see the pen is open just down there. There's no queues there. You've come on a great day, so nice one for that. So actually just go to the end of that pen, walk all the way down, and you're in under that big old clock, and you won't be disappointed. Make sure you do the crown jewels before you leave the tower today. And again, there's staff inside there. Any questions, speak to the staff. Last building I'm going to talk about right down the bottom there, that's the headquarters of the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. Now that's an old infantry regiment that was formed here at the tower in 1685. But not only is it their headquarters, but they also have a very small military museum within that building, and you are more than welcome to visit that museum. Let's get your attention back here then. I want to speak about the executions. And like I said, there were very few within these walls. But three of them were Queens of England. And the first of those was on the 19th of May, 1536, and was Queen Anne Boleyn. She had been tried on questionable charges of incest, adultery, even witchcraft. But her execution was not by the axe, which she feared greatly, but it was done in the French manner, using a two-handed sword. Her last words on the execution site as he wielded that sword, "Lord God, have pity on my miserable soul." A prayer that she said over and over again. Now the executioner, a professional, brought over from Calais, France, especially for this task. And he did the task so professionally that when he lifted her head to declare the traitor, it was recorded that her eyes were still moving in their sockets and her lips were still moving with that prayer. 5 years later, in 1541, it was the turn of Margaret Pole, Countess of Salisbury. This dear old woman, she committed no crime. She wasn't even afforded the luxury of a trial. She was, however, the mother of Cardinal Reginald Pole. And it was him that King Henry VIII would have dearly liked to get his hands on. But Cardinal Pole was safe in Rome preaching against Henry, and as Henry couldn't get the son, he took the mother, and he had her executed instead. This brave, nearly 70-year-old woman, who was the last of the Plantagenet family, she refused to place her neck on the block, stating proudly, "It is for traitors, and I am not such." The executioner literally hacked her head and shoulders to pieces. Doesn't get any better than this, you know that, don't you? They're all unhappy endings. Okay. The following year, in 1542, the axe unusually fell twice on the same day, and this time the victims were Queen Katherine Howard and her lady-in-waiting. Now Katherine, as you may know, was executed for her associations with other men, both before and during her marriage to Henry. But it was her affair with Thomas Culpeper, a gentleman of court, which was to be her final undoing. And it was said that she spoke on the scaffold site, saying, "Today I die the Queen of England, but I'd much rather be dying the wife of Thomas Culpeper." An admission of guilt or an expression of love? We will never know. Thomas Culpeper thought it was a bad idea. He was in the crowd. "Did you just say that?" No, stop it, stop it. He was dead 3 months before, but why spoil a good joke? Immediately afterwards, it was the turn of her lady-in-waiting, a woman named Jane Boleyn. Jane Boleyn was the Viscountess of Rochford. She was the sister-in-law of Queen Anne Boleyn, and she was executed because she knew of Queen Catherine's affairs, but she had failed to tell the king. And then it would be 12 years before the axe would fall again, and this time the very tragic victim was the innocent 17-year-old, uncrowned queen of only 9 days, Lady Jane Grey. Now, after the death of her cousin, King Edward VI, she'd been declared queen. She was placed on the throne by her ambitious relatives. She ruled from the White Tower for just 9 days until the rightful heir, Mary Tudor, regained the throne by force of arms. Lady Jane Grey and her young husband, the 19-year-old Lord Guildford Dudley, were sent to trial at London's Guildhall for treason, and they were returned back to the Tower under the sentence of death. Lady Jane Grey was imprisoned in number 5 Tower Green, and that's a building overlooking this very area. From the first floor window of that prison that she would have watched her young 19-year-old husband, Lord Guildford Dudley, being led from the Beauchamp Tower, slowly escorted up onto Tower Hill, where he was to publicly lose his head. She would have then watched the handcart bringing that headless corpse back into the tower for burial inside our chapel. And if that wasn't enough for this just 17-year-old girl, she also witnessed carpenters erecting a scaffold site here in this very area for her own execution later that day, on the 12th of February 1554, a very tragic day in English history. Now all those souls and many, many more have found their last resting place in our beautiful chapel. I do suggest you do have a quick look in there, just to say you have, okay? So make sure you do try and do the chapel. Right, okay, so now I've taken you right down, I need to build you up again before you go. So let's talk about, I did say that I'd have to speak about us Yeoman Wars, that we have a nickname. I'm sure I mentioned at the beginning it is the Beefies. And I'm sure you'd all like to know where that nickname originates from. We don't know. Our history goes back hundreds of years, but there's nothing in our books or our ledgers that tell us the real reason why we were nicknamed the Beefies. However, historians do believe it was because we were once paid in beef, or we were rationed beef and beer, for being the monarchy's bodyguard and the keepers of the Great White Tower. We like that one, we tend to roll with it. But there are other theories. One includes tasting meat, food or beef before the monarchy to test for poison. Who would do that? Not me, that's for sure. Another is our portly figures. We don't like that one. So how to become a yeoman warder here at the Tower of London? Well, you have to have done at least 22 years in the military. You have to have the long service and good conduct medal, which is this one here, or the undetected crime medal. Most of my friends anyway. You also have to reach a certain rank within our military structure. And if you're not sure about the British military rank system, I'm sure you'd have all heard the term Sergeant Major. And it's those three things that I just mentioned there that you must have, even before having a hope of your application going through here to become a yeoman warder here at the Tower of London. Lastly, very quickly, let's talk about our uniforms, because we do have two. Now, you'd have probably seen pictures of our red and gold uniform on posters around London, just outside in the big shop outside the main gates there, or even in your tourist books. That red and gold uniform you see is that's our state dress, and we wear it on special occasions only. We wear the red and gold tunic with a white ruff, goes all the way around the neck. We wear a Tudor bonnet, very similar to this, but with red, white and blue ribbon all the way round. We wear red breeches, shorts, if you like. We also wear tights. Manly tights. We carry the traditional weaponry of the yeoman body. We carry a partisan, that's like a big spear. We also carry a sword, and we do wear that quite often, but on state occasions only. For example, Her Majesty's birthday, or if there is a big state visit to the country. Now, this uniform here was brought in during the Victorian period, and it is a form of working dress, if you like. It's actually called blue undress. Now, we are asked on a daily basis, myself and my colleagues, what the initials mean on the front of this tunic. And I'm sure there's lots of you who are aware. But just in case you're not, E2R. It means Elizabeth II. Regina, Latin for Queen. Although we do have another meaning for it. We also think it means ever so romantic. Twice a day. And on a good day, that's 11, not a 2. Right, okay, that is the end of the tour, ladies and gentlemen. Please make sure you visit the chapel and the Waterloo Block and the White Tower. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. Thank you.